Hello, everyone. This is your friendly neighborhood Smarchitect, and today I have a very, very special guest, Nicola Askham. Nicola is a world-renowned data governance leader. She has a podcast of her own, and she's done a lot of work in the space of data governance. Nicola, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Arvind.
Appreciate it. All right, well, let's start with a little bit about yourself and your journey into the world of data governance. How did you become the data governance coach?
Totally by accident. I'll be very honest. This is one of the questions I love asking when I'm doing presentations in person. Like, put your hand up here if you chose to go into data governance, and there's normally a tiny smattering of hands. I think the getting into it by accident is quite common. So I'd worked for one of the big UK banks for a number of years and kind of followed the career path they said. And after internal job advertising was introduced, I ended up applying for and getting a project manager role, but I was actually attached to a data management team. So I did loads of data warehouse projects, and it was really exciting. We were doing a new data warehouse for the corporate bank, and we had I had an amazing IT project team, and they used to have an IT project manager and a business project manager. So I was the business one. Amazing team, still friends with some of the people from that time. And we were all young and enthusiastic, and when we wanted to test the model, we noticed that some of the data was really a bit ropey, so we fixed it. Or with the benefit of hindsight, we didn't fix it. I think we just perhaps made it less bad rather than correct, and we were really proud of ourselves. And then I was a very young, inexperienced project manager, and the finance manager says, well, I'm not signing off on that, the numbers are different. And I'm going, but they're better. And you know what finance people are like, they like their numbers to be the same, and if they change, they need a real proper reason why, not some naive project manager saying, well, no, but they're better now, it's great. And I was a bit frustrated because nobody was thanking us for making the data better. Some of it, like, being there was gaps, things were obviously wrong, and we'd fixed what we could within our limited skill set. And I was really a bit frustrated, but kind of my boss went, you're a project manager, just get on with it, move on. My job was to deliver this data warehouse. So we put the new model in, but we then went back and redirected the source systems to the new model. And you know what's going to happen? We never fixed it in the source systems. We only fixed it when we migrated the data, which I now know. Anybody tells me they want to do that, I go, no, please don't. The data was rubbish again. And I kept asking the business people if they cared, and nobody seemed to care, and it annoyed me. And again, my boss went, not your job, get on with the next project. So I did loads of other data related projects and CRM, customer data, master data. And then I got to work one day and my boss went, you can't be a project manager anymore. The bank is creating a new change management, project management department. They're taking all project managers from all areas of the bank. And I'm going, well, that's all right, because I really thought that I'd found my thing. It was the job I'd enjoyed the most in my career. And she went, well, no, you're not going, because we love you. We love you so much. We don't want you to leave this team. We've escalated it all the way to the HR director, so you don't actually have a choice. And I went, oh, at that point, the majority of the data team were actually the BI team. Mm-hmm. And as part of being on the team, I'd been given the option of doing SQL training, which I did. Found the course really easy. The exercises in that were great. You try and do it in real life. And I was looking up something, I can't remember what, and I managed to do a Cartesian join where you accidentally join every table to every table. The DBAs, when they rung up, were not overly polite. I won't ever remember what they said. So I knew that me joining that part of the team was really not an option. And I said to my boss, what am I going to do? I'm really bad at coding. I'm much better at the people and the project management side. And she said, I've really got no idea, but for heaven's sake, look busy. And that was the first time I'd ever been told I could make up my own job.
Fantastic.
I thought, after thinking about it for a bit, I think I went back to her and went, can I go and sort out who should care about the data? And I think she rolled her eyes and said something along the lines of, you're not still going on about that, are you? And but she didn't have anything else. So that was when I started talking myself into some very senior people's offices and talking about data. And sometimes I did it more successfully than others. But it was kind of, I didn't even know it's called data governance. I was trying to talk about what, who should care, what roles and responsibilities were there, and it was fun. I enjoyed it, but it was hard because I think I was slightly ahead of my time.
It is such a fascinating thing. And of course, banks more than anybody else would care about data. And then you have the CFO type, the accountant CFO type. It's either black or white. There's no gray area in data, according to them, right? Now, fast forwarding now, everybody are data heroes. Every CXO in an organization cares about data. And these agent thingies are now picking up faster now more than ever, which means data is more important than anything else. Had had you been in this situation now, young, hungry, happy, activated, whatever those characteristics are back then, would you have a easier time selling this vision that somebody needs to care about this, or do you think your approach would be the same from back then to now?
I think from back then, I've evolved a lot. So no, I think it's changed a lot. I think what I've learned is nobody wants to do data governance, or not for the sake of data governance. No, I think, if you say, Arvind, nice to meet you, I'm going to do data governance and help you, you'd be going, no, I'm really busy doing other more fun stuff until I go away. And I think the big thing I've learned, and I'd love to go back and tell them the 23, 24 years younger than me version of me, is to say, actually, people don't want to do data governance, and they don't want generic benefits like I'll make you more efficient or you'll have better quality data.
Clean up your data quality. Yeah.
They go, so what?
Right.
If critical business processes are working now and not breaking, they don't care about you going, but they might. So what I think is, it's this, you mustn't sell data governance. You've got to sell the benefits. And that's hard because you've got to go and work out for everybody I meet. So if I'm meeting you for the first time, I kind of go, what does Arvind do? So if you're really into the AI and the agentic agents and things, then I need to explain to you why they won't work so well if they've got rubbish data, rather than telling you, I can do efficiencies for you, going, well, yeah, go and talk to finance about that. I don't really care about that. So it's that hard work, but you have to sell the genuine benefits to the person you're talking to.
I actually read an article that you wrote. I think it's called Managing Data to Support Business Strategy. In that one, you talk a lot about that, right? So you use this word, which was interesting to me. You use the word people get confused when you talk about the value of data governance, right? And so in that scenario, again, back to the business strategy that you talked about, how would you unconfuse them and keep it short and simple and stupid, the KISS methodology, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good one to use. So
how do you sell data governance today without selling it?
So there's two things I do. I work top down and bottom up. So top down, if I'm not going to get anywhere unless I get some senior stakeholders supporting me. So I look at the corporate strategy. Even I know so many companies have data strategies now, but let's go back and look at the corporate strategy, look at the key objectives and say, is our data good enough to support those? Because if they're not, and you're responsible for delivering one of those, and I say, don't worry, Arvind, I can help you do that, because did you know your data's not good enough to do that? You'd be going, wow, tell me more about this data governance thing. But if you're responsible for delivering that part of the strategy and I come along going, I can waive these vague, woolly benefits, you're going to go, no, Nicola, I'm really busy. And I'm sure you'd be more polite than some stakeholders I've dealt with. But it's that kind of, you've got to tie it to what that person's responsible for when it's senior people. But I think from perhaps the middle management all the way down to the people right at the coalface, I like to find what I call data quality horror stories. So what's really going wrong? Because a lot of them don't get reported all the way up the line to the senior stakeholders.
Absolutely. And they won't know at the organization level what the organizational priorities are. Many of them are just doing their job, right?
Exactly.
Down there. Yeah.
And so we need to start saying, so Arvind, actually what you're telling me that your team wastes 10 hours a week trying to find this data and fix it before you can use it in your reports or whatever.
Absolutely.
That kind of conversation, you suddenly go, yeah, it does, and then you can start amalgamating these stories. So one, they're very good to convince the people you're talking to. But they're really good for the comms, for actually then collating some of them and taking them back to the senior stakeholders, saying, not only am I helping you deliver your strategic objective, but look what else we're going to do.
Yeah.
And you can start, because it's all about the communication. We almost have to be marketing experts. We have to sell our services, and then we have to shout about what we've done as well.
Sell, yell, and tell, as my friend Scott Taylor always says. Right?
Yes, he does. I forgot. Yes, indeed. Yes. Yeah.
He yells a lot, even though he's called the data whisperer, but that's another time. Look, I think, as late as a couple of weeks ago, I started another brand new data governance initiative for a client of mine, right? What I'm still surprised is that something as basic as defining your roles and definitions, the stewards, the analysts, the architects, and so on and so forth, at this day and age, they still don't have that figured out yet. So it's absolutely critical you understand your roles and responsibilities, but as you said, How do you now position this to a stakeholder who's on the business side that it is important? Because the first question I get, or the first answer I get is, I'm really busy, buddy. Now you want to call me a steward, and then you want to assign 3 things additional to do with me. So what does it, why is it so hard to define these roles, especially in this day and age? Or are you thinking it's too strict? It becomes too strict once you put a name called data steward for Nicola, data analyst for Arvind. What's the reason for that? Why are they still defending?
I think some of it is still, I was making the same mistake, and I see so many people still making the same mistake of selling data governance. And actually what we should be doing is selling the benefits all the time. And I find that it's a different kind of a approach with the different roles, but I like to start with the data owners because they're the senior accountable people, and I need them on board, because you might well be a data steward, but if your boss doesn't know he's a data owner and is on the hook for anything, when you say, oh no, sorry boss, can't do that, I'm just doing this for Nicola because I'm a data steward, he'll go, well no, I think you should be prioritizing my stuff, Arvind. But so we need to make it his stuff as well. So I like to start with getting my data owners identified and engaged. And I upset people because if they say I need to assign or allocate or any kind of word that sounds like I go you and you, I go, do not use that word. We have to find, identify, engage. We do not tell people we're a data owner. We get them to agree that they are.
I see. Okay.
And some of that will be by convincing you that I can solve problems. Now, clearly, I'm going to have to use the word accountable in the formal role definition. But in the early conversations, I'd be saying to you, are there lots of data issues going on for your team, Arvind? You go, oh yeah, they waste so much time. And I went, would it be useful if you had that power to make decisions about that data to get it fixed? Because quite often things don't get fixed because nobody wants them fixed. They don't get fixed because nobody can agree who can approve it. And so we all just waste time having conversations going, well, not me, kind of thing. Go and ask somebody else.
See, it's almost interesting to hear you say this, because for me, 10 years ago when we were building all these complex enterprise systems like ERPs and CRMs, there used to be change managers or change agents. These people used to use the word, what's in it for me, the WISM, right? And it almost sounds like you're talking about something like that, where you first of all identify what's in it for the person on the other side without using the words data or governance or steward or all these complicated things. And then you uncover them to almost say that I'm a data owner. It's a change management 101 thing, right?
Oh, it is. And one of my favorite ways of doing that, if a client lets me, is to do conceptual data models. Because I just say, so let's say I find the finance director or their deputy, because we know they're likely to own finance data. Somebody senior in finance has to own finance data. But if I go and tell them that, it doesn't go so well as saying, I want to do a really quick, high-level conceptual data model. So could you come along and bring some of your subject matter experts? So they will probably bring the head of each of the different finance teams. Yep. And actually what they've done is they've just identified their data stewards and brought them along.
Nice. Well done.
But during the, a really quick workshop, 90 minutes, we can brainstorm the majority of a conceptual data model for finance. What data do they use? What data do they produce? They tend to talk about their challenges with it, just naturally while they're talking about the data.
You got data quality right there. Data quality issue. Yeah.
They start telling you some of the reasons you can sell it back to them. And then normally right at the end of the conceptual data model workshop, I kind of just, although I haven't planned it at all, say something like, oh, so this is really interesting. We haven't really finalized the role definition yet, because you want them to think they've got a say in it. And you say, but is there any data on this model here that you wouldn't want anybody else in this organization making a decision on without coming to you? Usually. And they say, yes, of course. And then I go, let's put a thick red line around all those boxes. And then they've automatically volunteered to own that. And then
I like this approach a lot, because now you're starting with a conceptual data model where the organization itself identifies their core data entities at a higher level, not thinking of it as data entities, but thinking of it as business entities, marketing, a sales, a finance, a manufacturing, a supply chain, all of these big entities, big pieces of data. And then you're asking their own accountable people for those big pieces to say, without saying they're the data owners, you're identifying them. Then they start talking about these big pieces of data. What are the problems they're facing? Input data quality. Then they start talking about how to use them, the use case. And you're almost defining like a top-down approach, starting with a conceptual data model all the way down to your data quality issues at a rule level.
Yeah, and it's just nice and easy. So the data owners now volunteered themselves.
Yeah.
I say, a bit later on, not at that workshop, I'll go and we'll formally agree. And then I go, obviously you can't, as a data owner, you can't do all of this. So you need to appoint some subject matter experts. So they then normally nominate the people that they brought along to the workshop to be their data stewards. And then they're a bit harder because they have been volunteered or voluntold, as a friend of mine always calls it. But whereas I've gone out my way to get the data owners to volunteer, they've been, they themselves have been told. But when I do training for data owners, I obviously play to their ego, tell them how important they are. When I do training for data stewards, I tell them to ignore what I've told the data owners because I really know that they are the key people here and because they're the subject matter experts. And I think you have to address the point you made is that all these people have a day job. And what we've got to do is explain that, if we do data governance right, in the long run, it should take less time to do data governance activities than you get back in business benefits.
Absolutely.
If we're doing it wrong, we're being too onerous and we're doing data governance wrong. But I also have to manage expectations and be honest that there's going to be some upfront work, but the sooner you get that done, the sooner you start getting the benefits. So I've always been very transparent and, don't kind of say I've got a magic wand and all our data is going to be great next week because we're now doing
magic wand. Although I'll get to it in a minute about AI being the possible magic wand. We'll talk about that. Now, talking about day jobs. So there's a fine line between data governance and agility, right? You need to see these incremental milestones, these incremental wins. When you define these things, how do you balance the longer roadmap, right? To more of a, hey, what's in it for me tomorrow, next week, next month, next year? How do you work that out? Especially what I'm thinking about is, look, we just started a CRM integration project, right? And there are like 4 different Salesforce instances, and now you need to make it one. Each one of those have their own data issues, data quality issues. Which one do I prioritize? So it's a very complex ecosystem that I'm trying to build. But data quality seems like the overwhelming theme to start with. Yet I'm struggling to prioritize one over the other. So how do you manage agility with longevity?
Yeah, this is hard. So I said right at the start, I used to be a project manager, but it was so long ago, agile wasn't even a thing. So I was an old school waterfall project management methodology. And I still think that kind of approach works well for the very beginnings of a data governance initiative, because we've got to get a foundation in place. We've got to get some key roles defined and agreed. But I think from then on, working in an agile manner works really well. But I think what I've always found is that I think, I might be your data governance manager, but I'm not responsible for prioritizing, because I think there's this misconception that the data governance manager team, if you've got a larger organization, are doing data governance for you, but we don't. We support the business users to do data governance. And I think that's it's nuanced, but it means that they do the work and we help them. So therefore, who are we to say that your data is more important than the next stakeholder? Gotcha. So this is when, and it's another really good way of keeping the data owners engaged as well, is to get them coming to a data governance committee, council, whatever you want to call yours. And
this will also help you on the budgeting side, because now you put 3 data owners in a room, a marketing, a sales, and a supply chain. If they help you prioritize, you can then, as for example, IT, ask the question, hey, who's going to pay for this? There's work to be done. I get that. And there's value to be added, but somebody's got to pay for this. So that's a good point too.
Yeah. And I love getting them, because then they can prioritize and then I'm not the bad guy for saying not doing your work first. And particularly if you've got merging ERPs is very hard, as you know. And you really want them to be doing some decent data governance in the first place. But to actually define all the fields, then map them back to the 4 that you're merging, that's a huge amount of analysis. And, you're going to have a team of BAs working on that. So we've got to be doing something in the meantime. Those foundational bits of data governance take a long time to put in place. And they will absolutely deliver you value, but not tomorrow. So I always say we've got to do something short term to keep people engaged. And it is exactly what you're saying. It's the data quality issues. So as soon as I've got some data owners, I can launch a data quality issue resolution process. And some of them might be coming out of projects and programs. Some of them might be coming out of normal business as usual, where operations say we've got this massive problem. we keep, running out of key components of what we're manufacturing, or we're sending deliveries to the wrong place, and because of the data. And then we go, let's see if we can fix that. And if you were 3-4 years into a data governance initiative, I'd be saying we need clear criteria for assessing every data quality issue. And we obviously prioritize the most critical. In the early days, I'll prioritize what's the high value but minimum effort, so that I can fix some things very quickly and then shout about them, look what data governance has done. Not quite like, but you've got to shout about it. If we just keep our head down and move on to the next thing, people don't, then they're not going to tell somebody, Nicola saved us this. We need to really shout about what we're doing.
Absolutely. Well, no podcast ends without talking about the big elephant in the room, AI. All right, let's talk about it. So 10 years ago, we never imagined a situation where there will be coding agents supporting developers to do their work faster, better, cheaper. 3 years from now, do you imagine data stewards having steward agents and quality agents, AI agents, supporting them, not just doing work for them, but also proactively indicating them there seems to be a problem with your quality? For example, yesterday it was 97% accurate. Today it automatically went down to 50%. This happens today. It alerts you even on the trend if the trend goes way different from the previous day. But what's happening now is it's saying the trend has gone down because used to be a human, right? Now an agent is assisting a human to decode the because, the root cause analysis, if you will.
Yeah.
Do you envision all of these things being more mainstream going forward? What are the humans telling you?
So I've got a bit mixed views. I'm really excited about AI, and I use it when it's appropriate. I think some of the uses of it are going to really revolutionize things. I think in data quality and in coding, it is going to be invaluable. So we've already established I'm really rubbish at coding. So if I'm trying to help you write data quality rules, I can come and get a business rule from you. I'm pretty good at that. Yep. You don't want me turning that into SQL to interrogate the database. So, that's right. But so using AI, so I can give them a business rule to go and do my rules. I love the idea of what you're saying about like the pattern detection, perhaps like master data management. It'll be much better at matching and telling us what does and doesn't match, or, spotting things. So I think it's going to be very good at the grunt work, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
I really worry about, I've already seen some of the data governance software vendors launching AI that writes your definitions for you. And I think that could lead in really, big mistakes being made, because AI doesn't understand context. And I think back to the number of mistakes that I've come across over the years where people have reported the wrong thing or done the wrong thing because they didn't have a data catalog, and they've just got, that date must be the right date, or that must be the right field, and they've reported the wrong things. And we're going to just make more of those mistakes if we haven't got humans in the loop. So I'm a little bit worried about AI agents writing data definitions for us. I love the idea that it could perhaps like just be doing in more intelligent profiling and giving clues and hints, but not making the decisions. Because
I love the way you kind of stated it, where it's more of an assistant. It's not going to replace them, right? So that's basically the theme I'm getting everywhere. It's not just data governance. It's any business problem agents are trying to solve. It's an assistant. It can never, ever, ever replace a human. That's the bottom line. Yeah. Now, let me go to the other side of this. Look, one of the problems that AI agents are creating, especially the ones that are creating more contents, it is exactly that. It's creating more contents, more data, if anything, which means we need more data governance now more than ever, right? I'm sure you would have been in the middle of an AI project, for example. How do I automate my supply chain with more AI? And now it creates just more data, and you need more policies and more robust governance. How does that change what you figured out 20 years ago to now, especially with AI being everywhere and creating more, if not less data?
So I think it was an interesting, we discussed it at a masterclass I ran for a software vendor in the UK a few weeks ago. And we have this, and a few people go, would it be really good if we could have an AI governance agent? Did the governing the AI? I go, well, possibly, who knows the way things are going. But I think basic principles of data governance are the same. I've always, in the early years, I wasn't very pragmatic about it. I used to say all data should be perfect, and then we could all live happily ever after. And then that didn't go down very well. But so I think we've got to be practical and pragmatic, but we know if we train our AI on the wrong data or poor quality data, it then won't make the right decisions or do the right things for us. but I don't want, we can't be Nicola of 24 years ago and, but it's all going to be perfect, because you imagine what the AI teams are going to be going. Yeah, let's bypass the data governance people because they're just being obstacles and blocking this. So I think we've got to work with them to work about what's good enough.
Okay.
And I think we're going to have to prioritize what we work on and what we don't. And we've always said that you've got limited things, but I think we've got to find a way of working in an agile manner with the AI teams, make sure we're involved with them and not be the ones going, well, no, I haven't ascertained that the data is perfect yet, but start, you can start doing testing. I mean, even if I think back to when Solvency II was an insurance regulation in Europe back quite a few years ago. And you had to work out which of the data was the most critical to a calculation. And the only real way to do that was to keep messing around with the data and running the model to see what happened. And I kind of feel that's almost what we need to do with our AI, is kind of, we don't have to get all the data it's using to be correct, but how can we work out which is the most critical to be correct? Because then we can put our efforts on that, make sure that's good enough. And then it's almost like we can iteratively work out where we need to focus our effort.
I actually love the word critical, because we use this word called critical data elements, especially when you're defining the data catalog. As an example, a customer has, I'm just making this up, 75 critical data elements. And then out of that, you'll have 5 that are the most important, right? Name, address, phone number, whatever. That will uniquely define that customer, master data principles. But at the end of the day, it still defines the priority or the hierarchy of attributes that defines a particular data set, back to the conceptual data model comment you made earlier. So the core principles remains the same. It's just now the volume and the variety of data has increased massively. But you're 100% right. Anyway, the exciting times ahead of us. I do want to shift gears talking about something very exciting for you. Effective data governance. A design framework that works for your organization. So you're launching a book. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited about it.
How do you feel?
I feel very excited, but I'm in the middle of proofreading at the moment, and actually really quite proud, because I kind of had it in the final draft beginning of August, so quite a few months ago. And so you kind of forget about it and you read it and you keep going, wow, did I really write this? But I think not only just in terms of, wow, I wrote this, but it's also the kind of, I've learned so much over 24 years of doing data governance. And a lot of it is, don't do this. It really doesn't work. And, I've worked with so many different clients over the years, but there's probably hundreds and thousands of people out there that I haven't helped. And you're just kind of going, well, actually a book's a really accessible way of doing it. So it feels like a really lovely legacy to kind of say that, this is everything I've learned. You can go and do this and work out what works for your organization.
No, I definitely agree with that, because it's very difficult to spend time with someone and download everything they know, because you've gained that experience over the last 20 years. It's excellent to summarize what you've learned, especially the don'ts more than the do's, because that's what, people like us are looking for, right? On a daily basis, could I go somewhere where I can learn the 3 most important things to not do when you're going through a lineage journey or a catalog journey, for example, or you're defining the conceptual data model. So again, congratulations on the book launch. I hope to have you again after the book launch, maybe a year from now, to see, what the Amazon reviews are about the book.
Thank you very much. Well, it's out in February, so not long to wait now.
That is fantastic. Amazing. Nicola, this has been very, very educational for me. Really, really appreciate it. I wish you good luck. Is there a principle or an insight or even a warning that you want to pass on to my listeners before you wrap up?
So I don't normally, I always forget about the KISS principle, but it is that, because that is the theme that runs through the whole of my book, actually, and mostly of what I say to people all the time is just keep data governance simple. We don't want complicated frameworks. We don't want role descriptions that are 2 pages long. We just want to keep everything as simple as possible, because if we overcomplicate it, nobody will understand it, and they will go out of their way to avoid doing it rather than do it. To make it easy to do.
Yes. No, that's a sane advice, and I know you've done this a lot. Really appreciate it. Next time, I believe I'm going to talk to Nicola the human, and possibly Nicola the steward, the AI agent steward. Who knows?
Who knows?
Thank you very much for joining my show, Nicola. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been great talking to you.